Good morning, and welcome to another segment of What's Going On. My name is Bob Felleman, and I'll be your host today. We're honored to have with us an academic and author by the name of Geoff Dutton. Welcome.
Thank you, Bob. I'm so glad to be here.
Our pleasure. I'd like to read just a small section of a foreword to the book Turkey Shoot, Geoffrey's latest endeavor, to give you a short introduction to it. This book tells the story of one such jihadi, a 20-something Sunni Muslim, devout but no fundamentalist fanatic. What radicalized him was not the secular stench of Western civilization, even though he had strong doses of it as a youngster in Iraq. His own path to salvation is personal, as jihad is supposed to be, and motivated by revenge, as not all are. What put him on it was the unnecessary and inept invasion of his country by the U.S. that turned his family into internal refugees, ultimately leading to the slaughter of his parents at the hands of an ISIS militia. Mahmoud is on the warpath, not because some imam brainwashed him, but because his life was ruined. Secure in his own faith, he despises those who twist Islam to justify despotic atrocities and is willing to find a common cause with anyone with the courage to stop them. Geoff, why don't you give us a synopsis of your book in its entirety, if you can?
Sure. I don't think I can tell you the whole story, but I want to show how it starts out. We have Mahmoud being ejected from Iraq, or more actually fleeing from Iraq with the help of some Kurds. And he gets into northern Syria where it's sort of a safe area, and the Kurds turn him over to a militia. First picture, please. Which is fighting ISIS, people like this. So he joins the battle, he wins with the militia and with the Kurdish forces. They beat back ISIS in a battle for Talabad, and then there's a problem with the Kurds, and they get, and he and his international brigade back up and evacuate across the Turkish border, at which point, because he was so brave in his fighting for his brigade and for the against ISIS, he's now chosen by his company commander for a mission for which he'll have to go to the Greek mainland. And so, next picture, he gets carted across Turkey in a lorry with Kurds who are moving around, and then he joins the refugees. He pays money to the smugglers to take him to the island of Chios. You see Chios there on the right. It's just like about 5 miles off the Turkish coast. In Chios, he bribes a Turkish fisherman who's looking for ways to profit from these refugees to take him to Piraeus, where he's supposed to be, and he contacts by phone the person who he's supposed to be volunteering for, who's a seasoned terrorist. Well, he meets his new comrades, and they go, and they have a plan to go to this place, which is an amphitheater in Turkey, to do some dastardly thing, but that doesn't work out. I won't tell you the reasons. Soon, they regroup and they decide to do another mission entirely. And what that is involves this place, which is also in Turkey, and I won't go into that. But he is with 5 other people who are 2 Turks, a Swiss, an Austrian. And, well, he's the 5th. And so these people have problems getting along for a while, but they eventually bond. They have to flee from where they are because of something that the police do, and then they have to set themselves up and figure out what the hell they're going to be doing, or should they just give up? They want to make a difference. They want to pull off a radical act, but they don't really know what it can be now that the original mission has been scotched. And you see what they, how they interact. You get a real close look at their profiles, their fears, their doubts, you know, their quirks, and especially Mahmoud, you know, who is basically a fish out of water, and he is learning to cope with all these foreigners in a foreign land, you know, with nothing, you know, sort of to back him up except them. And so as we go through the rest of the book, he ends up being he ends up with a woman who has been essentially stalking him, and this causes a lot of problems for the group because nobody quite trusts her. But in the end, you will see that a resolution is forthcoming and that she becomes a trusted or possibly trusted comrade. I'll leave it at that. That's just the first half of the book. A lot more happens.
Right. I've read the whole book. It's very detailed. Tell me, in your career, academically, whatever, you've written a lot of things, and I assume virtually all of those are nonfiction things.
I would say it's sort of half and half.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of short stories, a lot of memoirs. I don't know if you call that nonfiction. I guess it is. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I started out doing academic writing. I have like 50 academic titles to my name.
So my real question is, what made you decide what genre to use as a book, fiction versus nonfiction? I mean, what was the key decision? Because a lot of the events in the book resemble or are almost identical to things you read in the newspaper or see on CNN or other places.
Right. Well, it's the news that actually motivated me to write the book, and I decided as soon as I knew what it was about, even though I didn't have the plot, that I would be following real events. And so throughout the writing of it, when something happened in that part of the world that was relevant to the book, I would find a way to sneak it in. And sometimes, you know, the sequence gets a little bit off because, you know, this book takes place within a period of a couple months, and what we're talking about actually took longer than that.
Right.
But what motivated me was the fact that in the summer of 2015, all these refugees were streaming from Syria and Afghanistan and Northern Africa into Greece and into Italy, mainly, and they had nowhere to go. And while Germany welcomed some of them, as they moved north, they were not very well taken care of. And our politicians, this was even before Trump was involved, was saying, oh, you can't let these people in. There might be terrorists among them. You know, we have to guard our borders, blah, blah, blah. And I thought this was both overblown and prejudicial to Muslims. And so I said, I will give you your Islamic extremist who you feel is out to destroy your way of life and hates democracy, and I will make you weep for him. And that's when I came up with the character of Mahmoud. And obviously it had to be fictionalized because I don't know anybody like that.
Right, but there was a purposeful intent, almost a romantic intent, to make Mahmoud an attractive radicalist, if we could call it that. Is that not true? He's like anti-hero, but
Right.
romantically
Yeah,
a
they
hero.
are all anti-heroes. And what's odd about this book is that there are no good guys. There are people who work for the government, particularly the Greek government, who are a threat to these guys. But it is entirely narrated from their points of view. And I don't know of any work of like spy fiction that deals with political radicals, which quite does that, with the possible exception of John le Carré's Absolute Friends, which I consider a nice model.
Mm-hmm. Now, your wife, I've been told, I haven't met her, is Turkish.
Correct.
And I've also been told by your daughter that as a family or individually, whatever, you've gone to Turkey and been there more than once, and you're somewhat familiar with that part of the world as compared to most Americans who haven't done that.
Yeah, I have a good familiarity with Turkey and its culture and its politics, having been there, I don't know, half a dozen or more times.
Sure.
I haven't been to the places that the book travels to, but that's okay. There are other ways to get to know them.
It's an interesting story. I worry on some level whether the consumer who isn't that aware of politics in that area, doesn't really read the newspapers very much, will they buy something like that? As opposed to they should, in my mind, if they like that genre of writing. But, they may be wary in even reading another book. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if they will or not, but I'm hoping that the cover will impel a lot of them to do that.
Absolutely. It's a great cover. Turkey shoot. Definitely well designed. I like the cover a lot. Double entendre, whatever. What else can you tell me or want to tell us about the book that we haven't talked about?
Well, this group of radicals has very few resources, but fortunately they have a patron who's housing them, but they can't tell him what they're up to. So they have to be very secretive, and they have to figure out how to construct a new mission, and with almost no money, and how to get to where they're going in a way that won't attract attention. And as a result of that, they end up complicating their mission. And they also end up, Mahmoud becomes the hitman, as it were, whereas the others are playing supporting roles. But as he says near the end of the book, he didn't do this alone. He learned that it takes teamwork and dedication to fight against odds to get something done. And even though everyone is going to look at him as the man, they have, it's a group effort.
Absolutely. But, reading about the individual members of the group, but you get the feeling some of them have maybe 3 or 4 identities that are backdrop that we don't even know about because of the chaos of the area. You also have that sort of
That's interesting.
chaos in people's self-identities, who they were, who they still are but don't reveal, who they're trying to become. It's like almost Nietzschean man, women, whatever. And I kept thinking, is there going to be something at the end that's going to tell me this identity of so-and-so, or is that just remain hidden? Is that left by the author deliberately to keep you wondering? You know what I mean? It has that flavor to it, which is kind of nice because you don't want to reveal everything.
Well, as I say in the blurb, what they do changes their lives and may change the course of history. They end up being different kinds of people slightly than they started out being.
How do you envision sort of, because you're self-publishing this in effect, correct?
More or less.
More or less, yeah. How do you envision propagating it, communicating the essence of the book so that sales and things will happen as quickly as they can, whatever?
I actually have a publicity campaign. I'm sending a blurb about the book. It's actually a couple pages to about 3,500 so-called media influencers around the country.
Media influencers.
Yeah, I don't know who they are because I did this through the
They may have 3 or 4 identities
Independent
too.
Book Publishers Association, which I joined, and they have a lot of benefits to help authors publicize books and publishers. And I became my publisher with an imprint called Perfidy.press, but actually the publisher is something called Gatekeeper Press, and they are handling all the setup, the typography, the cover design, but I'm working with them every step of the way, of course.
Sure.
And then they put it into distribution. And so when it hits the street, it will be a paperback and an ebook that will be in iBooks and Amazon and Kobo and Barnes & Noble and a bunch of distributors that serve libraries and universities. They're very good at that. So I don't have to figure out how to contact distributors. It's all part of the deal.
That's good. It takes a lot of worry off your head.
And I have a press release that I'm going to send to local media and libraries and places like that. I have a flyer. I have book cards that I can place in bookstores and libraries. So, starting small, I'm hoping to get, a bit of a fan base in the Boston area.
Right. Okay.
So that's why my media blast should result in maybe 5 or 10 people inquiring, and I will send them the book and or more information, and hopefully they will do something with it.
Right. Respond to it or say, hey, I liked it a lot. Let me write in the Omaha Times, whatever, whoever these people are, that the book is really interesting. And did you enjoy the whole process of writing this?
I was glued to it. I didn't enjoy it all, but I kept needing to improve it. I went through 9 revisions over the course of almost 2 years. And thanks to my beta readers who gave me a lot of good feedback, or bad feedback in some cases.
Well, but that's important.
I had a volunteer editor in the early days that was wonderful. And then ever since the end of July, I've just focused on the marketing, which is entirely new to me.
Right.
And it's a tough nut, but I've listened to a lot of podcasts about how you get a novel noticed and how you deal with certain media types, how you get your best hit on Amazon, because 70% of all books sold online are sold on Amazon.com.
Unbelievable. That's an astounding figure to me. Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. And normally, last time I did this, we were doing 2 professors on the Armenian genocide. So we do all kinds of different subjects.
Yeah, sure.
And this is a very interesting one. But
Well,
we have to wrap up, and
thank you for the opportunity, and I hope I made myself crystal clear.
certainly clear. Well, crystal, we don't know. Thank you.
Or through a glass darkly.
Right, exactly.